Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Diablo 4 and we're going to be ranking all of the two-handed maces or bludgeons, whatever you want to call them, the big hammery type weapons. We're going to be ranking them all from worst to the ones that I think look the worst to the best. And now obviously this isn't going to be a stat-based ranking because that is all random and or, customizable in this game with aspects and, higher level weapons and stuff. So we're just going to be going through the aesthetics of them. How do they look? So the transmogs for the maces. And now there are 16 overall in the game. I have only found 15 in the entire time I've been playing. I can't find the 16th one. I don't know where it is. So, for one thing, if you have found all of them and you know which one I'm missing one, let me know down in the comment section below. But with all that in mind, also bear in mind that this is going to be a subjective ranking. I take a number of things into consideration. One, just how does it look? Does it look weird on the character, or does it just look like it wouldn't be a good weapon? I take historical accuracy into account to some extent, just because historically accurate weapons have the best designs in my opinion because they were designed that way to be effective, and I'm not a huge fan of what I consider to be very cringy fantasy aspects, the sort of MAUL ninja weapons. So aspects like that will make it lose points in my ranking. But with all that in mind, we're just going to start it off with number 15. And so starting us off at number 15, we have the War Mallet, and I don't like this one. It's my least favorite on the list for obvious reasons, or I should say it's obvious that it's my least favorite because I ranked it at the bottom. It's too small. It doesn't really stand up. I'm not saying it's too small realistically speaking, because this would obviously be a very large cudgel type weapon, but it's small. I don't like the materials. It seems very flimsy looking. It looks like it's been patched a million times, which I don't love. Obviously that might just be design elements, but I don't like the way it looks. It has those bone looking hook things in it, which would not be very strong and would not do a whole lot against any type of armor. And that being said, the weighted part of it either looks like it's also made out of bone, which would be too light to be very effective as any sort of a MAUL, and it also wouldn't be very strong. I guess it could also be rock, but again, we fall into the not being very durable type of thing. And it seems to be wrapped in like a wicker weave, so all of that put together, yeah, maybe you like the aesthetic of it. I don't care for the aesthetic of it, but it would also make it a really impractical weapon. So the War Mallet takes my number 15 spot. At number 14, we have the Bonebreaker, and this one is basically the same thing. The only reason I ranked this one higher than that one is because it's a little bit bigger, and so as a MAUL, it looks like a slightly better weapon, but everything else about it is just as bad, if not worse. We have weird hooked designs up top, also made out of either bone or wood or something like that just doesn't look like it would be all that effective, especially against anyone wearing armor. The haft of this weapon appears to be made out of, I don't know, some sort of light wood with a large split down at the bottom, which I would avoid because that would just cause problems down the line, and also probably wouldn't help with shock absorption. Overall, and it has like a weird grass patch thing that seems to be held on with some twine and some other sticks wedged into it. I don't like the way this one looks. I think it's a very bad weapon design, and aesthetically it's not pleasing. So I don't like the Bonebreaker, and that's why it takes the number 14 spot. At number 13, we have the Horned Cudgel. I like one thing about this weapon, and it's that the bottom has like a spear point on it, so if you wanted to, you could use it as a spear, which would be effective in various types of combat. I don't like the top. I'm guessing that the reason it's called the Horned Cudgel is because the MAUL part of this is made out of the horns of some type of an animal. That's not a terrible thing, because especially if they're weighted, which you could have done because horns are oftentimes hollow, you could have filled it with lead or something like that to make it very, very heavy and very effective as a MAUL type weapon. That being said, just durability wise, we're not anywhere near metal with even the strongest horn that exists in nature. We're not anywhere near what you could get with steel. And so durability wise, I don't like that. I think it looks pretty cool, so that's why it's ranked above the other two. Like, I don't have a problem with the way this one looks. I like the little ball thing that would, not be great for strength on the weapon in real life, but it does look very cool up on, the head of the weapon. There's a lot of things about this one that look cool, but as a weapon itself, I don't think it would be very good. And there are much cooler looking weapons, so aesthetics cannot save this one. So the Horned Cudgel takes the number 13 spot. At number 12, we have the Penitent Hammer. This one, at first I liked it, but then after a while, because I was using this one as the transmog on my weapon, I didn't like how thin it all looks. It just looks so small. All the rest of these MAULs, even the ones we've looked at already, have this greater thickness and weight to them. This one looks so small and delicate, and I don't love that. At first I liked it because the design of it kind of reminds me of Sauron's mace from The Lord of the Rings. But after a while I got kind of sick of it, so I don't really like it because it looks so delicate. Other than that, aesthetically it looks pretty cool. It's got the gold silver as the main colors on this one, so I think it looks cool enough, if a little bit edgelordy, but like I said, I don't like how delicate and thin it looks overall. So the Penitent Hammer takes the number 12 spot. And number 11, we have the Great Hammer. hammer. This one, I actually kind of like how thick and chunky it looks. That being said, I don't like how large the top is, just because looking at that looks like it would be hard to lift that off the ground, you know, just overall weight distribution wise. So obviously it would be effective. This is metal. It looks like it's bronze, which is a very effective metal for something like this. It would be perfectly valid to use in combat. It also looks like a lot of it though, so it looks really, really heavy to me. And I just overall prefer the larger concentrated maul design, especially for Barbarian, over the longer, thin, drawn out one like this. So the Great Hammer, I don't hate it. We've moved out of the ones that I genuinely don't like. I do like this one well enough, but I like a lot of other ones better than it. So the Great Hammer takes the number 12 spot, or the 11th spot. At number 11, we have the Dread Mace. This one's kind of fun looking. I like the kind of surging lava look to it. It looks very magical, but in that same regard, we fall into a lot of the fantasy stuff that I'm not nuts about. I don't know how to rate the strength of this one, because if the lava was making that, if it looked like that, it would obviously still be molten, which would mean it wouldn't hold its shape, and you know, there's just a myriad of reasons not to think too much about the design of this one from like materials, because clearly it's supposed to be some sort of a magical weapon. I do like this one. I think it looks neat. It doesn't have all that much weight towards the top of it, which kind of gets it that lower ranking from me, because when I think of a maul, I'm thinking of a larger, heavier, blockier top to it when we're talking about a fantasy game. But yeah, this one looks pretty cool, and if you like lava, maybe this one is the one for you. So the Dread Mace takes the number 10 spot. Number 9, we have the Great Maul. This one's a pretty basic design, nothing too ridiculous about it. There are actually historical examples that look similar to this, albeit quite a bit smaller, because this would be, you know, too heavy and large to use realistically. But I like it. It's got spikes to it, so it has a lot of puncture capability, and it also looks like it's quite heavy. The haft of it is not ridiculously long, but it's long enough that it would be useful. So I like this one. Not a whole lot to say about it. The Great Maul is a pretty standard design. At number 8, we have the Skull Crusher. This one kind of follows that same aspect of the last one. It's less of a hammer and more of a large, oversized mace, which I do like. I like the design of the handle. I like the very large metal pommel section down in the bottom, and then the leather wrapping for the rest of it. The top itself looks like it would be very effective. You've got points along the entire geometry of it. That would be great for causing, you know, pinpoint damage, which is why you want points on your maul, so that way all of the force is focused on that one spot. I could see this one getting a little too grabby, but honestly, it's probably not that bad. I do like the Skull Crusher, so it takes the number 8 spot. At number 7, we have the Greater Maul. So this one is another one that I like for a lot of reasons. It's kind of interesting because it's flanged at the top like a mace, but they don't go out at equal angles. So it's almost kind of like an axe that also has some flanges on it, because the aft and the fore and aft pointing ones are the longest and most distinct. So it's just got a real interesting design that I do kind of like. That being said, it falls with some of the other ones that I've ranked lower on this list, in that the top does look relatively small. Obviously, in the historical context, it would still be oversized and very effective as a mace. I just think it looks a little small in the Barbarian's hands. But the Greater Maul is still pretty cool, and that's why it takes the number 7 spot. At number 6, we have the Demolisher. I do generally like the design of this one. It's a heavy hammer, which is my favorite for a Barbarian. I like that. That being said, the haft of it is kind of skinny, and the top part looks huge, so I would be worried a little bit about the shock and also the durability of the handle on this one. Also, the top is clearly made out of what I have to assume is a bronze fitting filled with a large piece of granite or something like that, which yes would be very heavy and yes would be very effective given its size, and the fact that you couldn't really crack that with like a sword or something like that. You would just dull your weapon hitting against it. But it is rock, which even though it's heavy and granite is what I would guess they would use for this, is pretty durable. Still, it's rock. Steel would be better. So the Demolisher ranks low here, or not low, but lower than some of the other ones with a similar design, even though I do really like the way this one. So the Demolisher is number 6. And number 5, we have the Two-Handed Hammer. I like this one. It's basically the same as the Demolisher, just a very large, oversized hammer. The main difference being this one appears to be made out of steel. I do find it interesting that the ends of the hammer appear to be concave, which is interesting. Normally, if they were anything other than flat, they'd be convex, but it's an interesting design that I don't hate, and overall, it's a pretty cool looking hammer. So I like the Two-Handed Hammer, and it takes the number 5 spot. At number 4, we have the Iron Mauler. This one is ridiculous, but I love it. It's a super oversized mace. It's got a flanged mace design, which actually pretty historically accurate if it was like a 10th this size and on a much smaller weapon. This one is just obviously huge. I love it. I love the bronze elements on it. It looks very cool. The handle parts on it, the upper and lower parts, are very cool. I'm not sure if that's wood with bronze inlay or just a carved bronze, but either way, it looks really, really neat. I really like the Iron Mauler. It's one that I use a lot, so that one takes the number 4 spot. And number 3, we have the sledgehammer, which is a bit of a misnomer because this is clearly a mace and not a hammer, but it looks super cool. I love this one. It's got the incredibly oversized head, which would make it just really difficult for anyone who wasn't ridiculously strong to use. But if you were strong enough to use it, it would be super effective. We've got a lot of points around it, which would allow you to, again, use that directional energy on a very small surface, which would be great for puncturing armor and just shattering everything underneath it, given the overall size of this ridiculous weapon. I also like the aesthetics. The haft of it that appears to be wood is a very light white, which is cool and contrasts really well against the antique iron look to the rest of fittings. I genuinely like the sledgehammer. It's another one of my favorites, and so it takes the number 3 spot. And number 2, we have the warhammer. This one is obviously oversized, but other than that, actually a pretty historically accurate design. We've got the point to the back, which doesn't stick out straight, but is a hooked shape. You could use it as a sort of piercing weapon, but because of the curve, it wouldn't be as effective as it would if it was straight. So I would say it's more of a grappling tool at this point, used to grab your enemy's weapons or your shield or whatever and bring it down before finishing them off. It doesn't have a point on the top, kind of more of a rounded thing. That's an aesthetic choice. It would be less effective this way, but it does look very cool. I really like the front of the hammer. That's cool. It, like I said, is pretty historically accurate shape and size-wise. I genuinely like that. And the rest of the axe follows suit. It's got the gold and silver alternating designs. Very, very fancy looking. I genuinely like the warhammer. Like I said, not a lot to complain about in these top ones. They're obviously my favorites. That's why I ranked them the highest. But finally, at number 1, we have my absolute favorite, the dire mace, which is just this huge steel double-sided hammer that is ridiculously oversized, is way too heavy, would never be useful in real life, but it looks so freaking cool. And obviously, since we're a magically strong barbarian, it fits for this very, very well. I love the design of this one. Nothing bad to say about it. If I had to nitpick, I would say the little nubs up on the top would not be very comfortable to hold, and so that's the only thing, but this one is super durable looking. It looks awesome, and it would obviously be devastating to use in combat if you had the strength and stamina to use something like this. So that is my ranking from 15 to 1, 15 being the worst, 1 being the best. Like I said, there are 16 overall. I do not have this bottom one. I don't know what it is. If you know what it is, let me know down in the comment section below, but that is all for today. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it entertaining, but we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.